Mer, and Topshim Lamed Beis, Shabbos Parts by Yikra Gimel Nissen. That's the same kvias like this year. Today, Thursday is Rosh Chodesh, Friday is Beis Nissen, and on Shabbos it's Gimel Nissen. So we will begin the Maimer. The Siyata V'Shmaya, Shabbos Parts by Yikra Gimel Nissen. Vayikra Topshim Lamed Beis. Vayikra Moshe Vaydabra Vayolov Moel Moed Goyim. Adam ki Yaakov became carbon. That Hashem called to Moshe and he spoke to him from the oil moed from the tent of meeting, a person that will bring from you a carbon. Tzarich l'havim, we need to understand. Harei l'chol hadibris v'l'chol amiris, to all the times when Hashem said, where it says Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe Leibor. And the same thing where it says Amira, in other words, Vayomer Hashem al Moshe. All wherever it says wherever it says Tzav, so all of these cases, wherever throughout the Torah, where we see different expressions of Hashem speaking to Moshe, Vayomer, Vaydaber, Tzav is Bnei Yisrael, Kadma Kriya Lashlichim. Beforehand, the Eibishter called out to Moshe, and the idea of calling to Moshe, the Chazal say, like Rashi brings down, it's an expression of love. He didn't just appear. He didn't just say, hey, I want you to do something. Like when I was a kid, I remember I used to call up somebody and says, I need this and this and this. Afterwards, I was told, first of all, you call up, you say, hello, how are you, and so on. And then you say, can you help me with this and that and the other? The same thing. They shouldn't just jump at Moshe and said, Tzav is b'nei Yisrael, Adam ki Yaakov mekem. Vayikra Hashem al Moshe. Hashem first called him, said hello, etc. That shows a love, that shows a relationship. After he called him, so then Vaydaber, Vayomer Hashem al Moshe Tzav. But in actuality, in the Torah, it says Vayikra Hashem al Moshe only in our parsha. Why does it say the calling that Hashem called to Moshe explicitly? It says it in Parshas Karbonos. In other words, the beginning of Chumash Vayikra, where it starts talking about all the different Karbonos. So over there, it uses the expression of love, though this occurred every single time that when Hashem spoke to Moshe. The simple reason we could say is the Mashkas of Vayikra Parshas Karbonos, or the reason why it says Vayikra in the Parshas Karbonos is because the beginning of the Eibishter speaking from the tent of meeting, the first time he spoke was this parsha. The first time he taught the Torah was this parsha. At the end of the previous Chumash, at the end of Parshas Pekudei, at the end of Chumash Mois, it says over there they finally, after Truma, the Tzav, Gisisa, Vayakel, Pekudei, they finally erected the Mishkan, and the cloud of glory came down on the Mishkan, and the Eibishter rested on the Mishkan. So our parsha, the way it's coming out, the way we're learning now, is following immediately then. The Eibishter's cloud came down the Mishkan, and then Vayikra Hashem al Moshe, that Hashem called to Moshe and told him, this is what you're going to do now in the Mishkan. You got to bring the Karbanos. Here are the halachas of the Karbanos. Do it this and this way. So, in other words, it was the truth is every single time David spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu from the Oil Moed, he called him and before he spoke, and then he spoke to him. Since this is the first instance, the first part of the Torah where Hashem addressed Moshe Rabbeinu from the Oil Moed, the first thing was Parsha Karbonos. So therefore, he starts off by Yikra Hashem al Moshe, that the Eibishter called to Moshe to tell us the Parsha Karbonos, and then already from the first time, every single time that David just spoke to Moshe, he called him first, and then Vaydaber, Vayomer, and Tzav, and so on. The Rebbe goes on to say, this itself needs explanation. Why Taf was the beginning of the speech from the Oil Moed in the Parsha Karbonos, even though he said he's going to, there's still a reason for it to tell us about the Karbonos, but the truth is he could have told us beforehand and we've been ready. So therefore, the Rebbe says there must be a deeper connection as well with the Vayikra and the Parsha Karbonos. Of all the mitzvahs in the Torah, the Vayikra Lashon Chiba has a special connection with it, even though Vayikra Lashon Chiba took place all the time. That's the Rebbe concludes in Mizem Mashma. From this, it comes out Shakili the Torah, the revelation of Torah, which is in Yonich Oil Moyed, the idea of the tent of meeting, meaning that over there is where the luchas were, and over there is where Hashem spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu and gave us the Torah and gave us all the halachas following that. Ubeikir bedine karbanos is primarily in the halachas of karbanos, and therefore over there where it's the revelation of Torah, the primary halachas of Torah, it says explicitly by Yikra Hashem al Moshe. This is also the reason why Vayikra is the third chumash of the 5 chumashim of the Torah. Milos HaTorah, she orientally saw the advantage and the quality of the Torah, that it's a three level teaching. It says in the Chazal, they say concerning Shavuos, we always talk about the Shavuos Mamar, the Shavuos Sichos, that the Eibusha gave a threefold teaching, Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim, the threefold nation of Yisrael, Leviim, and Kohanim, and many different threes are connected with Matan Torah that I've explained the significance of the number 3. Well, therefore, since Torah is a threefold thing, and the main revelation of Torah, the idea of Oil Moyed, is in Parsha Karbonos, therefore, this is in the third book, the Torah, the threefold idea of Torah is revealed the most in the halachas of the Karbonos of Torah. So, that's also the reason. And for all the times where it says Vayidaber in the Torah, they're preceded. The calling of Hashem, an expression of love. So this is derived from the Parsha Karbonos. Gam Maila Zu the Torah. Also, this advantage of Torah, the beloved nature, the idea that Hashem called in a way of love, Ikar Agilu Shalah, who within our Karbonos, its main revelation of Hashem's love is in the halachas of Karbonos. So here the Rebbe is going to go on to explain the connect. Second paragraph on the first page. Yes, we can explain this according to what the Rebbe Rashab, the one whose yard site is based this tonight, tomorrow, the Mamor de Ramaskel Adam Kiyakriv, in his mimer titled Adam Kiyakriv, on that mimer he says, the Lechura Havalel Meimar Kisakrivu, the Li Lahaskir Miwa Makri. Seemingly, it should have said, the pasuk should have begun like this. By Daber Hashem al Moshe Leimar, or by Daber Avaya Love Ma'el Ma'id, Ki Sakrivu Korbanchem. This is how you should do it. Why does he have to mention who's the one that's being marked? Adam Ki Yakriv. Why does it have to say Adam Ki Yakriv? Does it say by other things, by Shabbos, Adam Ki Savoid Malacha, Yishbais B'Shabbos, Adam Ki Yilbash, Al Arba Kanfes, Tzitzis, Adam, any mitzvah, it doesn't say Adam that will do such and such. All of a sudden here, when it comes to Karbonos, it begins Adam Ki Yakriv. It should have just said Ki Sakrivu, when you will be Makriv Karbonos. This is the halachas of Karbonos. Why does it have to say who's the one that's bringing it? Maybe the mimer that Rabbi Rashab brings down, these words brought down the Zoyar, that Zakoyin Inun Yisra, Yidden are very meritorious, the Kuchabrichu Kara Loin Adam, that Hashem called the Jewish people Adam. Where do we see that he's called Adam, like it says, Adam Ki Yakriv Mekem, that Adam that will bring an offering from you, in other words, our parsha. My time of Caroline Adam, what's the reason that the Eibishter calls the Yidden Adam? What is that specialness? Why did we earn that title? What is that indication? Because it says that you are cleaving in Avaya, your God. So therefore, this Adam indicates this joining and connection that Yidden have with the Eibush. Al Pisa, according to this, the Rebbe Shabbat is Mevayim Mashukos Kiyakriv Adam Davke. Why does it say Adam Kiyakriv? Adam Davke. Why does it say specifically on Adam that brings an offering? This power and capability that Yidden have in to offer karbanis because they are a level of Adam, because they are cleaving to the Eibishter, therefore they are able to bring karbanis. And the Maimer continues, similar to this is also brought down in the Medrash. Top of the next page. Karbanis, the reason why the Eibishter commanded the Yidden to offer the karbanis because they are cleaving to me. So we see the same idea. The Zohar says it's cleaving to the Eibishter, and that is that is what the Rebbe Rashab says the reason why they can bring karbanis, and that's the Zohar's reason of why we are called Adam, and the Medrash says the same thing. Why am I telling you about the karbanis? How are you able to do the karbanis? Because they're cleaving to me. Like what it says in Tanakh. In Yirmiyahu it says that the Yidden's connection with Hashem is like a belt that's cleaving to the loins of a man. So Maimer explains that even though we just now said that there is a similarity between what the Zohar says and what the Medrash says, still in all, the Maimer of the Rebbe Rashab is going to go on to explain that there's still a distinction. The cleaving, the joining that the Zohar speaks about the Yidden with the Eibishter, and the cleaving and the joining that the Medrash speaks about is a different cleaving. The Maimer of the Rebbe Rashab explains, the Medrash Medaber being not makes the Kalim, and the Medrash speaks about the cleaving of the vessels. That the vessels of the spheres of Atzilus, the way they cleave to Hashem, is like something else. It's a keli. The keli is something that contains the oil. So even though it contains the oil, but it's not the oil itself. So it's not a unity of a similar thing. It's a unity of two separate things being joined together. Similar to sometimes the mushroom that this gives letters on parchment. There's the parchment, there's the letters. The letters are joined with the parchment, but it's not that the letters are the parchment itself. As opposed to letters that are engraved in the stone, that's the same part of the stone itself. Just like in the pasuk of the gartel cleaving, that the gartel is a separate thing, but it's cleaving to the person. Nobody's going to say that the gartel, the person's clothing, his belt, is something that's part of it. That is what the Medrash is talking about. The Medrash is talking about the unity of the vessel, the unity of the way. There's Hashem and the Yid, but they're joined together. So the two separate entities are joined. The Zohar Medaber, the Zohar speaks about the cleaving of how the oiros of the spheres cleave with Hashem. That veik is by yichud the oiros who yichud atzmi, the cleaving and the union of the lights of the spheres of Atzilus with the Eibishter himself, with the oil himself, is an essential joining because they're all lights and revelation of Hashem. So they're one of a kind. They're of the same, if you will, material, and it's not foreign things that are joining. Another example would be the difference between the bodies joining with the nefesh or the koiches on nefesh being joined with the nefesh itself. The koiches and nefesh are both the same material. They're both neshama. They're both ruchni. The body and the nefesh, the body is a physical entity and the nefesh is a spiritual entity. They're truly joined, but they're two separate things that are joined. Therefore, the Zohar does not bring the same pasuk with the Medrash. The Medrash's pasuk is about a gartel cleaving to the loins of a person. A gartel and a person are still two separate entities. But instead, the Zohar brings a different pasuk to show on a more powerful unity You are cleaving in Havaya Lekecha, meaning Dveikus Mamish, it's a real cleaving, a real joining, a real union. Any questions before we go on to Ois Gimel? Okay, second page of your copies, Ois Gimel. Well, according to this, we could explain at the beginning of the book of Karbonis. Vayikra is also known as the book of Karbonis, because that's a lot of the themes, especially at the beginning, is about Akravas Karbonis. It says Adam Ki Yakriv. That's how it begins the Sefer Karbonis. Adam Ki Yakriv, not just Ki Sakriv. Adam, who the reason why Yidden are called Adam is Mishum Dva'at Madveiken, because you are cleaving, like the Zohar says, to Adveik is the Iris, that is the cleaving of the lights with the Iris. So that's the power and that's the quality of the connection of the Yidden with the Eibishter. And who this idea behind this is. We start off the Chumash with that Adam, with this power that you didn't have to offer up Karbonis is Be'ikers primarily because their cleaving in Hashem is the level of the cleaving of the lights. Sure, in Dargis Adveik is the Ezer, the Kalim, and this that it says in the Medrash that the offering of the Karbonis is connected with the level of cleaving of a belt, of a gartel, of Kalim. If we just now said that the reason why you didn't have this power to offer the Karbonis is because they're cleaving, but they're not just cleaving anyway, but they're cleaving what the Zohar says. It's the cleaving of Iris. So why does the Medrash downgrade? Why does the Medrash speak about a cleaving of a lower level? So the Rebbe is going to explain over here that there are two purposes or two functions of the cleaving. For one, we use the cleaving of the vessels, and for another, we use the cleaving of the iris. Just like, as an example, we have spheres, right? It's not just enough to have the cleaving of the iris of the spheres, but what the spheres have to accomplish, you also need to have the kalim. But the kalim alone are also not good because each one brings something else to the picture, what the iris accomplished and what the kalim accomplished. In a similar vein, there's what the Adam needs to accomplish, and he accomplishes that in the Karbonis through being the cleaving of the iris. And there's another component of Karbonis that the Adam accomplishes through his cleaving in the way of kalim. Let's see how the Rebbe explains. Yes, Loimar, 5 lines into the 6 lines, no, 5 lines into the paragraph, you could say, Ikara Karbonis, the primary idea of Karbonis is Sha'al Yodam Hukiyum. Through the Karbonis, the world goes on existing. The Yerushalmi says to plant the heavens and to found the earth. This is referring on the Karbonis, through the Karbonis, the laws of heaven and earth, the laws of nature continue. The Karbonis ensure the continued existence of the world. Now, even though Karbonis does this, but it's not the Karbonis themselves, but you need the person to activate this. This power that is to be found in the Karbonis to sustain the world and keep the world running. It's through the one offering the Karbonis is the level of Adam that's beyond world. In other words, there's a famous idea, Ein Chavush Matiras Atzme. Someone that's imprisoned cannot release himself from his imprisonment. To be able to ensure that the world is running and so on, one needs to draw down from something higher than the world. Since Adam is higher than the world, therefore, when he is the one that offers the Karbonis, come out of the world and so on, it comes from Daim, Sameach, Chai, and so on. So since Adam is higher in the world, he can empower the Karbonis to cause the world to continue existing. Isa Zoyar, like it's brought down the Zoyar, the Mashakasav, Adam Ki Yakriv, Zoyar is explaining why specifically Adam, Not why do we mention a name at all? Why specifically of the names of human beings do we use the term Adam, not other names? Shabbat Hashem is Adam, Gever, and Ish, and the four names that people are called by. Same Adam, the name Adam indicates the highest level of a person. How do we know? Maybe Ish is a higher, maybe Gever. Why do you say Adam is the highest? That Hashem created the Adam in his form and his image and likeness. So we see that Adam indicates the special connection with Hashem. And also Chassidus always brings down Adam as the word Edmel Elyon. I'm similar to above. So the Zohar says, why do we use specifically in this pasuk, in our parsha, Adam ki yakriv, the level of Adam that brings the carbon? So he says, the existence of the higher worlds. And the lower worlds is through the carbonas. In other words, an extension of what we said before. The Yerushalmi says that the entire existence of the world is dependent upon carbonas. The Zohar, as usual, expands this. It doesn't just mean the lower worlds, the physical worlds, but also the spiritual worlds as well, is also dependent upon the carbonas. Since the entire existence of all the worlds is dependent upon carbonas, also the avoid of the Adam that offers the carbonas has to be both components. The Inyan HaKarbonas, Atzmam, the idea of the carbonas themselves is the avoid of the person in his level of the vessels. In other words, he needs to relate to the world. He needs to be not so completely removed from the world and not so totally joined with Hashem that he's completely disconnected from the world. And we see this in the actual carbonas, what they're made from. They're made from things of the world. The fact that the carbonas are the existence of the world. Why it's through containing in them and being made up of all the four kinds of things that the world is made up: the inanimate, the vegetation, the animal life, and human beings. Where do we see all four? Carbonas itself comes from inanimate. Salt is added to the carbonas. We have to bring wine libation on the carbonas. That's Chai is the animal, the carbon itself. And then Medaber, the koyim that's bringing the carbon is the Adam. So that is the avoid of the Adam in his level of Kalim, his connection with the world, his relationship with the world. That's the Kalim level, the level that we see in the Medrash, the union of the Yid with the Eibishter in a way of Kalim. And this power in carbonas to actually give existence to the world. And that it's necessary, like we said, we got to come from outside of this world to be able to give this existence to the world. We need to have that the one who offers it, he is completely removed from the world. He is the level of Adam that's separated from the world. And what level of the Adam is separated from the world completely? Why the avoid that's through the avoid of a person in the level of the lights where we're there. It's a complete and total unity of Hashem with the person, with the Yid. Maimon goes on to say, bottom of the page, that's the idea where it says a person that will makriv an Adam, that will bring the carbon, is specifically at the beginning of Sefer Karbonis. The carbonas themselves, they come from the animal. And this is also including our own inner animal. As we know, we have to offer up our nefesh habahamis. And how does the Adam relate to the nefesh habahamis? How does the nefesh halakis relate to the nefesh habahamis? Because the nefesh halakis has a part in it that is also connected to the nefesh habahamis. There's a nafai de bechinas ban the nefesh halakus. This comes about because nefesh halakis. In the nefesh halakis, there is also a level of Shem Ban. And Ban is Begematria Behema. So that level of Shem Ban of the Nefesh Elokis, that is something that relates to the animal part of us. There's a very interesting point he says in note 26. I want to read this very quickly. Look at the Torah Patrasenu, the Bechinas Ma the Nefesh Elokis, Ya'avash V'Pnimis Halev, that the Ma of the Nefesh Elokis that he's going to talk about is an inner love, a love that's from a deep inside connection that Nefesh Elokis has with Hashem. Bechinas Ban the Nefesh Elokis, Ya'avash V'Chtzonius Halev. The bond of the godly soul is the love that has to do in the external part of the heart. And we'll stop over here in the Ha'ara, because the Chassidus explains that it's the external love, the passionate love, the overflowing passionate love of Nefesh Elokis that relates to the Nefesh Bahamis. So in other words, the bond in the Nefesh Elokis, which is the numerical equivalent of Behema, relates to the actual Behema in the person, the Nefesh Bahamis. Last word on the page, the Bechlalos, who Haneshama Kemoishi Bedargas Kalim. The level of the ban of Nefesh Elokis, top of page, the third page, the ban of Nefesh Elokis is the neshama, the way it's on the level of the vest. And that is the part that relates to the animal, like we said before, that elevates the animal. The power that he's able to do this is through the Ma, the Nefesh Elokis, Ma begematria Adam, Ma is the numerical equivalent of Adam. The Bechlalos, who dargis ha'oris ha'neshama in general, this is the level of the lights of the neshama. Because you need the Adam part, the Ma part of the person, the complete unity part of the person with the Eibishter, to influence and elevate the to bring up the elevation of the Behema. Let's try to learn at least another paragraph, or maybe two. Ois Dal. In Yedua, it's known the Torah mitzvahs and dugmas oiris v'kelim. Torah mitzvahs are similar to the oiris and the kelim that we just now said. There's the unity of oiris, there's the unity of kelim. According to this, we could say the shtei dargas hanal bad vekas the Yisrael b'Hakadosh Baruch Hu. These two levels of cleaving and unity of Yidden and the Eibishter, Nasemai de Limit Torah v'kiyama mitzvahs are accomplished through Torah study and fulfillment of mitzvahs. Aidei kiyama mitzvahs hadvekas the kelim. Through the fulfillment of mitzvahs, it's the cleaving of vessels. Aidei eska Torah hadvekas the oiris, and through the involvement of Torah, it's the cleaving of oiris. We have this idea in Tanya in the last few days, that recently in the Chitas, that there's the way we are a Merkava, the way we are a chariot, the way the mitzvahs surround us externally, but it doesn't come into us and become part of us. On the other hand, Torah becomes united with our brain. So therefore, the cleaving and the joining is a joining of one thing, the joining of oiris, whereas the cleaving and the joining of mitzvahs is a cleaving of two separate things. According to this, we can connect it what is brought down to Kunizor, the three tefillos are corresponding to the three images of the divine chariot, the lion face, the oxen face, and the eagle's face. And these are the malachim that correspond to the karbonis that we offer up down here from the ox and so on. Inyan Adam ki akriv da oiraisa. Then there's the Adam that brings and offers up the karbonis that they're rooted in the highest Merkava. That is the Torah. So again, Torah is associated with the Adam part. Mitzvahs, davening, is associated with the Ari Shor Nesher, with the animal. Gindav, the Zohar goes on to say, for this reason, Takinu b'tzloisa l'mishra sefer Torah, that they have established in davening to have the Torah read. Why? Because then you have a combination of the Adam and the Behemoth. We said we have the unity of Torah and the unity of mitzvahs. The Meva Bokar Banishlim Adam Zoisa Torah Adam. So you should have a complete carbon, because a complete carbon needs to have the Adam Ki Akriv. And if you don't have the Torah Kriyas Torah by davening, So therefore, you're missing the Adam part. Zois HaTorah Adam, as we see that Torah is the level of Adam. The Rebbe explains, we can say the explanation this is. The fact that we say that davening corresponds to karbonis, who can negate hakarbonis atzmam, these correspond to the carbon itself, not the person that's bringing the carbon, but it's corresponding to the actual carbon, the part of the world, the level of kalim, the dveikis, that's two separate things. The inyan atfilo bira nefsha bahamis al derech hakravas habehema, because the idea of davening is refining the animal soul, just like the bringing of the animal on the mizbeach is about refining the animal soul. The Indian Adam Kiyakib Daraisa, the idea that we're saying that the Adam that brings the carbon, that is Torah, this is the power that you didn't have to offer the karbanos that we said, Adam, because they are the level of Adam that's higher. The level of Torah, and the Torah's unity is the Vekas Ha'idus, it's the cleaving of the lights, a unity of one, not a unity of two separate things. Shenasai de Torah, that happens and occurs through Torah. Any questions?